With the 2021 Auburn football season complete, I thought it'd be a good idea to take a retrospective look back at the season as a whole and do a little bit of a series breaking down the games in some categories, maybe doing a little bit of rankings. So for this video, we're going to start off by ranking all the wins for Auburn football in 2021, and I want to hear your opinions on them at the end. Welcome to the E2C network, where the Auburn family speaks. Our content here and on our podcast network may tend to be Auburn sports heavy, but if it's orange and blue, it's what we do. If you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe so you never miss any content. And thank you to members of our booster club like Linda Bird, who help produce videos like this. Auburn football finished 6-7 in their 2021 football season, and it probably wasn't the most exciting or the best football season that any of us really imagined for, but that's what happens when you have a regime change, and not just a regime change, a major shift of culture, ideas, philosophies at Auburn. You're going to have a little bit of attrition, a little bit of struggles, and things like that, but that doesn't mean there weren't some great games to talk about. So like I said, in this maybe series that we're going to try to do. So for this video, I want to talk about ranking all the wins, all 6 of them for the Auburn Tigers. And I tried to kind of take a retrospective look at all of this, what it meant for the season as a whole, but also kind of rank them what they meant at the time as well. So this is arbitrary, this is my own opinions, and that's why you'll share yours at the end of this video. So we'll start off with number 6, and that's Alabama State. There's really not much to expound upon on this one because this is the teams that you schedule, you pay to come, you're expected to beat, more on that in a second, every single year. And there really wasn't anything excited about this. This was the second game of the year. A lot of people probably didn't even show up to this game. I know I didn't, but for other rescheduling conflicts. So I just don't really have anything to expound upon this. The offense took care of itself. The defense took care of itself. Everybody was actually kind of riding high after those 2 wins in a row heading into that Penn State game. So really nothing much to say. No offense to Alabama State. It's just what it was. A win over a team you should have beaten. Number 5, Georgia State. Now, normally this one is more the same as the Alabama State game, although you have to rank it higher because of the sheer excitement and frustration and interesting nature of which this game ended. For those of you that were there alongside me, you will agree that it was probably one of the more frustrating and more thrilling minor games that you've ever been to in Auburn history, with TJ Finley having to come down and lead a charge to win the game at the very end of the game, and literally it came down to the last play. So with that being said, Georgia State gets a little bit more respect here because they came into Auburn's house and they put it to them and worked off of the own things that Auburn was doing to itself, the problems that started to arise for them after the Penn State games and rear its ugly head that were carryovers from the last season. It was exciting in nature, which obviously ranks it up a little bit more higher than Alabama State. Number 4, Arkansas. Now, really, honestly, I kind of want to put the Arkansas game really lower than this, but they're an SEC team, so you really have to give them a little bit more, I guess, credibility. The reason this game even gets ranked higher is just because Arkansas tried to make this more than it really was. They were still all about that whole fumble controversy of a couple of years ago. That was still sticking in their craw, and they made videos about it and stuff like that. So they were really hyped for this game, and you can imagine how much they would have been throwing that in our face if they had won. Well, thankfully, they did not win. Auburn went in there and just basically handled them. Really wasn't a game for a lot of it down the stretch. There were some times where it was a little bit closer, but Auburn went into Arkansas and handled its business and went into its off week, its bye week, feeling really good about itself and where it stood, with a lot of things still in front of it. So Arkansas, good try, folks, but we took care of you as we usually do. Number 3, Akron. It was the first game of the season, and it doesn't matter really who the opponent is. First game of the season, especially if it's at home, everyone is hyped and ready to be there. The tailgating is finally getting going. There's football in the air. Yes, of course, it's sweltering heat at this point in the season in Alabama, but it doesn't matter. Everybody was excited. Even though this was a midday game, we did kind of get to see the evening, those Auburn sunsets as it came over towards the end of the game. It really just was a great way to kick off a new season, but a new era and a new regime for Auburn football. There was a lot of excitement, a lot of discussion about what could be for the rest of the season based off what we saw. Bo looked great. The offense looked great at the time. Tank looked great. The defense looked pretty solid. So really, we didn't get a lot of answers to questions we had in game 1, but everything was new, fresh, and exciting, as it should be in an opening win against a minor opponent. Number 2, LSU. I know a lot of you are going to disagree with me of this ranking, because you feel like this should be number one. And yes, I would say because of the sheer magnitude of what this LSU game meant to the Auburn family, you probably have a case to debate with me on that. But again, I'm also trying to take a look at these rankings in the context of the whole season. So yes, at the time, for the history of the game, beating LSU in Baton Rouge for the first time in over 2 decades was huge. That's a huge notch in the belt of Bryan Harsin to add to his resume, not just in his first year at Auburn, but to whatever his full resume will be at Auburn. I ended the LSU losing streak down in Baton Rouge. And Bo Nix in this game arguably probably had his best one, because he just literally put the team on his back and said, I'm going to gunsling my way to this win. We're not losing this one. It was a great kind of swan song for him, even though there was plenty more games left in the season. It was very exciting. Obviously, you love to see LSU suffer. They're one of our biggest rivals. But at the same time, with the way their season went and with Ed Orgeron leaving, this game, outside of just ending the streak, really didn't have a large impact on the rest of the season, even though it did position Auburn in a good way to compete in the SEC West for the rest of the season at that point. So for that reason, I have to put it at number 2. Doesn't take away from the excitement and the importance of this win for this season, but for the Auburn family overall. Number 1, Ole Miss. This is the clear high point of the entire 2022 season. And not just because we went on a 5-game losing streak after that, but because it really felt like Auburn had everything in front of them after this game, especially after the way they performed. This was a night game, prime time. There was a Heisman candidate there competing. Auburn really felt like this was going to be the turning point in the season in a positive way, but it turned out to be the negative way. They were coming off of a bye week, and so there's always a little bit of worry about, is there going to be a hangover after that? But there really wasn't. Ole Miss came to town, and the feeling on campus was electric. It was crowded everywhere. The fireworks at night, the recruiting atmosphere that we created there with the strobe lights, and I mean, it was just absolutely amazing. It was one of the best games that I've been to in quite some time, and it was exciting too. Auburn does win in this one 31-20, but there was some very close moments with Matt Corral, the Heisman candidate at the time, getting hurt, coming back into the game. It was just a great way for Auburn to beat a ranked opponent in a primetime atmosphere with the eyes of the college football world watching. You really can't find a better case for an overall impact on the season as well, because they were pretty highly ranked, but also ranked to potentially compete for the SEC West title at that point too. So all the context points to Ole Miss being the biggest win on the season. Even though that might be a little bit odd to say, I think I've got a pretty good case to say that. So those are my rankings for the wins for the 2021 season. Now, I'd love to hear your perspectives. How would you change the order? Do you agree with mine? Any other thoughts about those games? Would love to hear your thoughts down in the comments section below. And again, my plan is to do a couple more videos like this. We'll probably rank the worst losses. We'll probably rank the best overall games. Will be kind of a mixture, and the worst overall games. We'll see what we get into as time goes on. If you enjoy this type of content, please do help support it by smashing that like button. And if you don't want to miss anything from us, be sure to subscribe along with hitting that notification bell so you never miss an upload or a live stream. There are several ways to help support our content here on the YouTube channel by checking out links in the description of this or any of our videos. One of those being a channel membership program that we have here. You can become a channel member by hitting the join button or following that link. There's also the link for our Patreon, patreon.com/E2C Network. It's the E2C Network Booster Club. Both of those things start at $1 a month, and at the Booster Club, they have some options to go up higher if you want some more perks. Thank you for tuning into the E2C Network, where the Auburn family speaks. War Eagle.